What if just $300 a month, $10 a day, one dinner out a week, invested in the right place over the last 10 years, would be worth more than $100,000 today? Not in some far-off future. Today. And if you'd simply kept that habit going for 30 years, you'd be sitting on well over $1 million. Not lucky. Not born rich. Not some inheritance. Just an ordinary paycheck and one boring habit. There is a single move behind all of this. It runs on about $300 a month, and by the end of this breakdown, you will never look at $300 the same way again. Here is the move. Every single month, you take $300, and instead of spending it, you invest it. Not in some random meme coin, not in whatever your cousin is hyping in the group chat this week. You put it into the NASDAQ 100. So let me tell you exactly what that is, because this part changes everything. The NASDAQ 100 is not a single company you're gambling on. It is a basket, the 100 biggest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ stock exchange, bundled together into one. And these are not random companies. These are the titans. When you buy the NASDAQ 100 in one single move, you own a tiny slice of Apple, of Microsoft, of Nvidia, of Amazon, of Google, of Meta, of Tesla, of Netflix. The companies that built the phone in your hand, the software you work on, the chips powering artificial intelligence, the sites you scroll every night before bed. You are not betting on one company that could flop. You are buying the entire team of giants that runs the modern world. If one stumbles, the other 99 carry you. That is why this is not gambling. It is owning the future, 100 companies at a time. And here is the quietly insane part. This is not some secret locked away for Wall Street insiders. It has been sitting in plain sight for decades. It was just boring enough and slow enough at the very start that most people glanced at it, felt absolutely nothing, and walked right past the single greatest wealth-building tool ever handed to ordinary people. You are not most people. You are still watching. Now watch what this machine has actually done. You have probably heard of the famous S&P 500, which has averaged around 10% a year. Good, but its faster, tech-heavy cousin, the NASDAQ 100, has done even better, averaging around 13% a year over the long run. And over the last 10 years. Riding the tech and AI boom, it has averaged nearly 20% a year. 20. So let's not deal in fantasy or far-off promises. Let's start with that real, recent number and see what it would have actually done to your money. Picture you'd started just 10 years ago. $300 a month straight into the NASDAQ 100. 120 payments. Out of your own pocket, total, you put in $36,000. But riding that 20% a year, that $36,000 would be worth around $113,000 today. Today. Not at retirement, not in some distant future, right now. So split that pile in two, because this is the part that rewires your brain. 36 grand of it is your money. Exactly what you showed up and put in. The other 77,000. You never worked a single hour for it. The machine printed it and handed it to you while you slept, while you worked, while you lived your whole life. Now, one honest sentence, because anyone who skips it is lying to you. Nobody can promise the future. Some years the market dips and turns red, and tech especially can be a wild ride. But here is the gorgeous part. History shows those dips were the greatest gifts of all. Because while everyone else panicked and sold, the steady investor just kept buying the exact same thing on sale. And that 113,000 is only 10 years. The real fireworks come from refusing to stop. Because here is the secret the wealthy understand deep in their bones. The growth is not flat and even. It starts as a trickle and ends as a flood. In year one, your $300 a month is lonely and the gain is small. It feels like nothing is happening. And that is exactly where almost everyone quits, right before the fireworks start. Because by the back half, your pile has grown so big that the machine's gift to you in a single year can dwarf everything you put in that whole year. Your money starts out earning you. The little snowball you packed by hand has become an avalanche, thundering downhill entirely on its own. And now you are just along for the ride, grinning. So let it run longer. Now, to be totally fair, that 20% was an exceptional decade, and nobody should count on 20% forever. So let's be conservative. Let's drop all the way down to the NASDAQ's slower, long-run average of around 13%. Same 300 a month, but 30 years instead of 10. Out of your own pocket, $108,000. Even at that calmer 13%, it quietly turns into more than $1.25 million. A millionaire, comfortably past the line, built from $300 a month. And remember, that is the conservative number. That is the machine deliberately cooling down. Let that picture really land. A totally regular person, never rich, never lucky, never a genius, just stubborn enough to feed the machine $300 a month and leave it completely alone, walking into their 50s a millionaire. Built almost entirely out of money the market handed them for free, while their friends on the exact same salary spent every single raise and ended up with newer phones, nicer cars, and the same empty account. And if you think that recent run was a fluke, history flat out disagrees. Picture someone who began this exact habit 30 years ago. They lived straight through two of the most brutal crashes in modern history. The dot-com collapse that wiped out roughly 3/4 of the index, and then the 2008 meltdown. Two separate disasters. And because they simply kept buying through both, calmly, every single month, today they are sitting on well over $1 million. Through the absolute worst the market has ever thrown at anyone. Even the person who started just 20 years ago, putting in $72,000 of their own money, watched it grow to roughly $340,000. Crashes, recessions, panics, and the machine still rewarded everyone who simply refused to stop. Now you might be thinking, sure, the past was great. What about the future? And here is exactly why so many people are optimistic about the next 10 years specifically. Look at what these 100 companies actually do. This is not some fading, dying industry. These are the companies building artificial intelligence, the cloud that the entire internet runs on, the chips, the robotics, the automation that every other business on Earth now depends on just to survive. They sit on mountains of cash. They have built moats almost nobody can cross. And they are pouring billions into the next breakthrough as we speak. The single biggest shift of our lifetime, the AI revolution, is being built almost entirely by the exact companies sitting inside this one index. Nobody can promise you a number. That honest sentence still stands. But if you believe the future is going to run on technology, then you already believe in the engine humming underneath the NASDAQ 100. And here is the kicker that should make you grin. This entire time, we froze your payment at $300 a month, as if your income never grows. But you and I both know it will. The day you bump that 300 up to 500 to 600, as the raises roll in and you barely even feel the difference, these numbers do not just grow. They detonate. That $1.25 million becomes $2 million. 2 becomes 2.5. Same boring habit, same automatic transfer the day after payday. Just a slightly bigger number flowing into the same unstoppable machine for the same amount of effort, which is basically none. And here is the part that should light an absolute fire under you tonight. The single most powerful ingredient in this entire breakdown is not how much you invest. It is not even how good the index is. It is when you start. Because of the way this thing explodes at the very end, $300 a month starting today will completely crush $1,000 a month starting 10 years from now. Read that again. Less money, started earlier, beats more than 3 times the money, started later. Time is the cheat code, the real cheat code, and every single month you wait, you hand the avalanche a little less mountain to roll down. The best day to start was years ago. The second best day, the only one you actually still own, is the first of next month. So here is the whole thing, beautifully simple. You feed $300 a month into the greatest wealth machine of the modern world, the NASDAQ 100, and then you do the hardest easy thing there is. You don't touch it. Time goes to work. Your money makes money. Then that money makes money, and one completely ordinary day, years from now, you glance at the account and realize the quiet little habit you almost couldn't be bothered to start is doing more for you than your job ever did. That is not luck. That is just compounding, doing exactly what it has always done for anyone patient enough to let it. But, and you knew a but was coming, none of this, not one single dollar of it, ever happens if that $300 never actually makes it into the machine. If it gets quietly swallowed, month after month, by a life that puffs itself up to eat every raise and every spare dollar you ever earn. That silent leak, the one thing standing between you and all of this, is a trap that almost everyone falls into without ever feeling it close around them. And that is the next story.